know that ticket prices can actually go down right before the game? That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time tracks ticket prices in real time from thousands of trusted sellers, then shows you all the best deals. So we can get tickets at the last minute for up to 60% off. Download Game Time now.
And happy Wednesday morning. It's the Cam Rogers Show on this May 9th, 2018. I am Cam Rogers. Hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Got you guys covered for the next hour here. A ton of fun programming on tap for you. As we always do, we'll start things off with the latest NFL headlines. As you saw in the description on my show, Kurt Warner considering a comeback. Or at least he was for the 2018 season. We have the soundbite to play for you guys later in the show. Then I got my top 5 teams for Kurt Warner that could perhaps sign him at some point this offseason. We're going to have some fun. So everybody put on their humor hats, if you will, and have a little fun with me later in the show. All right, then, top 5 LeBron James playoff performances. I'll count you down from number 5 all the way down to number 1. And then at the end of the show, a look ahead to the Players' Championship. Tiger Woods will tee it up at TPC Sawgrass in Ponte Vedra Beach. And it should be a fun tournament at that. Tiger and Phil playing together. We'll get to those marquee groupings later in the show. With that, let's get to the latest NFL headlines here on this Wednesday morning. And we start things off with Johnny Manziel being hospitalized recently in Humble, Texas. This was actually on Monday. He had been in the area to attend the JMBLYA concert with friends after playing golf with Mike Evans, former teammate at Texas A&M, of course. And Manziel's rep, Denise Michaels, said, quote, "It seems like he had a reaction to an adjustment in his prescription. He's fine and he's headed home." So Manziel also released a statement, quote, "Unfortunately, I had a reaction to an increased dosage in lithium, which I take for my bipolar disorder." This was what I was thinking. I think maybe he just had some sort of reaction to the prescriptions that he had because, of course, he went on GMA recently and said that he does suffer from bipolar disorder. So it's, nothing out of the ordinary per se, just perhaps maybe a bad dosage or whatever the case may be. And he's actually impressing scouts of late. Manziel played in a couple spring league games. He rushed for a couple touchdowns in his second game, so showed some pretty good flashes in the repetitions that he had in that league. And apparently I said the concert wrong, by the way. I'm not really up with it with the pop culture here in Texas, so apologies for all the Texas residents. Apparently it's not the JMBLYA concert, but be sure to correct me in the comments section. People are already doing it here at Chat Sports. Let's get to the next headline here. The Panthers and C.J. Anderson are now a pair. How about this? So I like this deal. It's a one-year deal, terms not initially disclosed by the Panthers here. Anderson played pretty well last year, guys, having his first 1,000-yard campaign in his career, and that happened with just an okay offensive line, especially in the interior. Wasn't really good in run blocking for the Denver Broncos. And, oh, by the way, zero threat at the quarterback position when you have the likes of Paxton Lynch and Trevor Siemian tossing the pigskin around. It's kind of easy to stack the box and try to stop C.J. Anderson. So I think he's going to be a great compliment to Christian McCaffrey there, who had a solid rookie season in his own right. 80 receptions, 651 yards. A bit of a slow start for him in that Carolina offense, but they have a really good ground game. They rushed, ranking 4th last year, averaging a healthy 131 yards per game, and of course Cam Newton was a big portion of that. CJ, a Pro Bowler back in 2014. Something tells me that new offensive coordinator Norv Turner doesn't want to run Cam Newton as much as the Panthers did last year. Newton led the Panthers with a career-high 754 yards on the ground. And although that's great production from your franchise quarterback, that's not something I want to see as an OC, right? I want to keep my quarterback healthy and not running the football as much. Now, of course, you will have design plays with Cam Newton running the football and such, but that's why you bring in C.J. Anderson to kind of decrease the brunt of the load there with Cam Newton running the football. I personally have always been a C.J. Anderson fan. I think he'll bolster that Panthers ground attack even more. And the Panthers were a playoff team a year ago. People kind of forget that. They kind of snuck into the playoffs. Let me know, will the Panthers make the playoffs in 2018? Give me a heart for yes, a like for no, and be sure to expand upon yourselves here on Facebook Live as well as YouTube on demand. All right, let's get to the next headline here on the Cam Rogers Show. And, well, Mark Ingram has been suspended for 4 games for PED use. Not good news there for old Mark. So guess whose fantasy draft stock just shot up? Alvin Kamara. So the NFL officially suspending Ingram for those first 4 games. And Ingram last year led the Saints with 230 carries for 1,100 yards roughly and 12 touchdowns. He added 58 catches for 416 yards as well. So the good news is Ingram can participate in off-season workouts and OTAs and training camp as well as preseason games. He, of course, just can't be in those first 4 regular season games for the New Orleans Saints. So if you fantasy football players out there are getting your research done early, I'll tell you what, Alvin Kamara is an easy top 5 running back, suspension or not, with Mark Ingram here, but certainly going to have a higher stock and more hype with this suspension now. He's going to get a lot more work in those first 4 games for the New Orleans Saints, and Drew Brees not getting any younger either. So the Kamara train is choo-chooing down the tracks. Let's get to the next headline here, and it ain't a good one for Reuben Foster because this legal case continues to go on and it's getting muddier and muddier, but this is what we do know. Foster pleading not guilty to the 3 felony charges that are before him, including domestic violence stemming from an incident with his ex-girlfriend on February 11th. The preliminary trial is set for May 17th, but there's also a hearing this Friday which relates to a subpoena for evidence. He doesn't have to go to that. In fact, it's possible this hearing doesn't even happen on Friday. We'll see about that. The charges were officially filed on April 12th, you guys may recall, and the DA's office alleges that Foster dragged his ex-girlfriend by her hair, punched her in the head 8 to 10 times, and physically removed her from the house. Now, the alleged victim here recently recanted domestic violence allegations against Foster, which makes this whole case really muddy and difficult to kind of predict here. So the alleged victim provided a video of an altercation with another woman, which the victim says her basically injuries came from that altercation in that video with that woman there. So Foster, of course, has not been attending 49ers team activities, and John Lynch has been vocal about this ongoing situation here, saying that if Foster is indeed convicted of these charges, the 49ers will release him. Foster could face up to 11 years in prison if he is fully convicted. So the 49ers right now trying to work on this insurance policy should Foster miss some time or a lot of time. And, of course, they went out and got Fred Warner, the linebacker out of BYU. Not the perfect Reuben Foster replacement. He's a bit speedier, a bit smaller than Reuben, but I think he'll be a fine player on that weak side. Of course, you got Malcolm Smith as well, who's coming back from injury, and Eli Harold is there in the linebacking core, Brock Coyle, but it would certainly make 49ers fans feel a lot better if Reuben Foster were to be found not guilty. Let me know what you think, though, guys, because here on the Cam Rogers Show, we don't encourage your participation. We demand it, so hit me up on Facebook Live. We see Dan chiming in. Foster better get a 6-game suspension. I'll tell you this much, Dan. I think that is the baseline. Even if Foster is found not guilty, he's going to get the 6 games because that is the classic suspension amount for domestic violence cases, and that's what probably Roger Goodell is going to do. The burden of proof in the legal system among the courts is a lot different than within the NFL, right? Just look at the Ezekiel Elliott situation and how that all dragged on, which we could see something like that again with the 49ers and Reuben Foster, but we'll see. James chiming in. What up, James? Bring back Bowman. How about this, James? Theory for you. 49ers are now considering Navarro Bowman because the Raiders have Derek Johnson now. They're not going to bring back Bowman, so maybe the 49ers go out and sign him, get a veteran player back on that defense. He knows the system pretty well, and maybe he can be that stopgap option until Reuben Foster eventually comes back. Not a bad theory, am I right, James? All right, let's get to the next headline here. Tony Romo praising Jason Witten, who's now in the broadcast booth. Well, actually, both of them are now. So Romo wrote an emotional letter earlier this week in regards to Witten's retirement, saying, quote, "Not only was Jason the most talented, humble, and hardest working individual on the football team, but he was also one of the most genuine, good-hearted people you could ever meet." So there you go. Tony Romo with some big-time praise for one Jason Witten there. The two spent 13 seasons together. Witten was constantly Tony Romo's security blanket there for so many years, and now they're both headed to the broadcast booth, or one has been there. Tony Romo, of course, the lead analyst on CBS alongside Jim Nantz, and Jason Witten going to be a lead analyst for Monday Night Football with Joe Tessitore there, and that'll be a fun pairing at that. Of course, you got Booger McFarland as well as the field analyst, so a lot of fun new pieces there to the broadcast for Monday Night Football. But Tony Romo, I mean, you talk about a guy who has gone through so much and so much turnover, more specifically, and going out and saying that Jason Witten was the best player he could have ever met. It's pretty good stuff there. So I loved watching those two play. I'm not even a Dallas Cowboys fan, and I loved watching those two play just from a general NFL standpoint. So good stuff there from Tony. Wish Jason all the best, of course, when he heads to the broadcast booth there at ESPN. All right, so one man is retiring, is another coming back. All right, folks, so here is the deal. Kurt Warner legit considered a comeback for the 2018 season. And ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that I love are nostalgic moments, nostalgic stories, comeback stories. You know, the Brett Favres of the world. Boy Meets World came back and became Girl Meets World. Fuller House, right? The revamp of the original Full House. Now we're still waiting on Saved by the Bell. But here you go. Kurt Warner legit considered coming back to the NFL. We have the sound bites to play for you guys. He was recently on an ESPN baseball broadcast talking about it. Let's roll it.
Well, I tell you what, I was actually ready for this coming season. I actually talked to a coach, and my wife said, go for it. I think it would be great. So I actually talked to a coach about possibly doing it if they needed someone, but then they went out and signed somebody. I don't think they thought I was serious, and so I think we're completely done now.
So he was talking to a coach. Wow, we almost had Kurt Warner back in the NFL. So Kurt's going to turn 47 in June, guys. Hasn't played since the 2009 campaign. He has also said that he wants an opportunity just in 7-on-7s, just to see what he can do. Almost wants to test himself a little bit here. Now, there are a few ways to parse this, and let me just first say, this is extremely unlikely for Kurt Warner to come back into the NFL. I mean, you're talking about a Hall of Fame quarterback, and what Hall of Fame NFLer would say that they don't have what it takes to, you know, maybe try out and see what they can do in the NFL again? You know, I bet you if you asked Jerry Rice, he would say the same thing. Sure, I think I could give it a shot in 7-on-7s. I think maybe it's kind of how they're wired, right? I mean, these are guys that are ultra successful players formerly in the NFL, and for them to just say, well, I don't have it anymore, that's not in their DNA. Their DNA is to be good and to realize that they're good and to really never lose that. So Kurt Warner took it in a new direction. There's no doubt about that. Actually talking to an NFL coach about this. Who that coach was, we don't know. My theory is it was John Gruden, because it's John Gruden. He's brought in a couple of veterans so far with the Oakland Raiders there. So that's my theory on the matter. Now, we're going to have some fun later in the show. I'm going to give you guys my top 5 teams that could sign Kurt Warner this off season, because I'm looking at this quote here that he still wants an opportunity in 7-on-7s. That tells me he still wants an opportunity to get some reps in training camp and OTAs and whatever to see what he can do. And if there are some injuries throughout the offseason and throughout camp and all this stuff, maybe a team comes calling. So just hear me out. I know he's going to turn 47, but we'll talk about the top 5 teams later in the show. Let's get to the next headline here. The New England Patriots and Rob Gronkowski will be tweaking Rob's contract here. So this according to the Boston Herald, which is reporting the Patriots plan to make some changes to the Gronk deal. He's 28, currently has 2 years left on his contract with $17 million in base salary. Now, he could make up to $9 million this year based on his current deal. So the thought process is Gronk may get more guaranteed money, while the Patriots spread a bonus over multiple years on their salary cap. So it's kind of a win-win situation there. Last year, Gronk recorded 69 receptions, 1,084 yards, and 8 touchdowns to earn his 4th first-team All-Pro selection. The guy's still playing at a high level. Now, there was the whole ordeal with maybe Gronk retiring, maybe him not retiring, and it went on and on and on. And you guys have heard me rant about this before, that Gronk probably wasn't in the good graces with Bill Belichick there, and maybe Belichick was considering trading Gronk. Obviously, that didn't happen, and Gronk is going to play in 2018 and perhaps beyond that as the Patriots and Rob go through these adjustments here with his contract. So one successful tight end. This one wasn't so. Coby Fleener has been cut by the New Orleans Saints. So after Fleener signed that 5-year deal prior to the 2016 season, he's no longer there. So Fleener carries an $8.2 million dead cap hit, which is pretty high considering his $8 million cap number for this season. It's fair to say Fleener simply didn't pan out with the Saints. He was supposed to be a stud on that team. I know he was a popular name among fantasy football circles as well. When he joined the Saints, everybody was like, oh my God, sleeper alert, Coby Fleener, tight end for the Saints, look out. But he just totaled 926 yards and 5 touchdowns across the last 2 seasons. So not exactly good return on investment there. According to Pro Football Reference, Fleener only played 25.94% of offensive snaps for the Saints last year. They paid this guy 5 years worth of money, and they didn't use him last year, so maybe he was in the doghouse or whatever, I don't know, but yikes, Coby Fleener now on the open market looking for a new team, and I'm thinking it's going to take some time for him to find a new destination. Tight end position is very shallow in the NFL. All right, let's get to some Carson Wentz news. He's pretty confident that he'll be good to go in Week 1 of the 2018 season. He was recently on Good Morning Football saying the rehab process has been great so far. His goal is to be ready for Week 1. Rappaport recently tweeted and shed some light on the progress, noting that Wentz's mechanics are sound and basically throwing the same or even better than before the injury. Now, this could all just be, hearsay, who knows. But I think that's huge considering ACL injuries can really mess up your delivery. As a former quarterback, I can tell you, you get into a rhythm with your delivery. You plant your foot. Of course, you have the slot when you throw the football, and you have this motion that you're used to. If you get an ACL injury, which I never did back in my playing days, that can certainly mess things up, mess up your plant foot, and then that just reacts upward, right, where you can mess up your arm throwing motion and all this stuff. So it's good news for Carson Wentz. Now, with that said, the Eagles can't mess this up. I mean, there is no reason to mess this up because you have a Super Bowl winning quarterback right behind him in Nick Foles. So if you are looking at Carson Wentz and it's the week before Week 1 and he's 99.99% ready to go, don't start him. That would just be moronic because you're giving yourself that 0.01% chance that something could go wrong. And I know nothing is guaranteed in life, not even the Purell hand sanitizer says 100% relief from germs. But still, I mean, if you can get to 100%, sign off from the doctor that Carson Wentz is good to go, then why not just wait for that, right? So I think if you have to, you play Nick Foles in Week 1 of 2018. Totally fine with that against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the other thing to consider here is Carson Wentz is looking like he's not going to get any preseason reps, at least from what I'm gathering here. And if he doesn't get any preseason reps, it's going to take some time for him to kind of get accustomed to the regular season yet again. Joe Flacco, I always draw this comparison. Flacco is no Carson Wentz, I'll tell you that much. But Flacco missed the entire preseason a year ago, and he didn't look good, really, for the entire year, but especially in the beginning portion. So Wentz, of course, was in the MVP discussion for so long last year, threw for 3,296 yards, 33 touchdowns, just 7 picks in 13 games before getting injured there. Let me know what you think about the Eagles, because I have them in my #1 slot for the post-draft power rankings, and that's more of respect for the champs because it's May, guys. There's no way I'm taking down the Eagles. They just won the Super Bowl. I'm going to keep them at number 1 unless things drastically change. If we hear word that Wentz isn't going to start for the first 3 games or something like that, then maybe I shift them back and put the Vikings or the Rams or maybe even the Patriots at number 1. All right, so again, Carson Wentz, confident he'll be good to go, but I'm thinking week 1 will be kind of a lofty goal, but we'll see. All right, let's go to another team in the NFC East, talking about the Giants here and Odell Beckham Jr. So a new logo has been released here, and I gotta say, guys, I'm not the biggest fan of this. So you may recall last May, he reportedly signed the largest shoe deal for any NFL player, giving him approximately $25 million over 5 years. Let's take a look at that logo, and I think it's straight out of 17th century America lettering of some sort. Like, this is from a textbook from high school. What is that? OBJ. Like, I get it, but it's not all that nice looking. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm more of a fan of kind of like the player logo, like the Jeter logos and all that stuff, the Jordan logos. I'm not a big fan of the lettering here in this case. Why couldn't Odell have chosen like the net collapsing on him as his logo? I think that would have been kind of funny. Come on, have a sense of humor, Odell. So he also, 6 months later after that big-time deal with Nike, released that Special Field Air Force One mid-OBJ shoe. It's a good-looking shoe. It's okay. It's nothing special. It's no Jordan, nothing like that. But perhaps there's more to come here with Odell with this new logo. And I don't know. I think it looks like Mother Lori Rogers is watching the show right now, and she's in the marketing business. Maybe she can chime in on that logo there. All right, let's get to the next headline here. Let's talk about the NFLPA because it has filed a grievance case on behalf of safety Eric Reid. So Reid already has his own going collusion case against the NFL, alleging that all 32 owners essentially are keeping him out of the NFL because he kneeled during the national anthem. He was one of the first to do so alongside Colin Kaepernick. Now, the new development is the NFLPA has filed a grievance and a system arbitrator case against the league on behalf of Reid. So the Players Association claims at least one team asked pre-employment interview questions that were inappropriate, particularly the questions about Reid's protesting during the national anthem, as you see with those pictures on your screen. The Cincinnati Bengals are at the center of all this because you may recall Eric Reid was brought in by Cincinnati, right? And they went through the interview process and reportedly demonstrating was asked of Eric Reid. What were his plans in terms of the national anthem and kneeling and all of this stuff? And apparently Reid didn't give a straightforward answer here. And so they didn't sign him. The Bengals didn't. And now you have the NFLPA right behind Eric Reid on the matter. So the NFLPA is essentially saying the following, right? Because, well, first of all, let me say this, and I've said this many times on my show. There is no legislation right now from the NFL that requires players to stand during the national anthem. All right? So what the NFLPA is essentially saying is the Bengals and perhaps other teams are preventing an act, kneeling during the national anthem, that isn't even disallowed by the league itself, right? So the Cincinnati Bengals are preventing Reid from kneeling during the national anthem. The NFLPA does not like that. Again, this is me reporting the news to you guys. I'm not giving you my opinion on the matter. And the NFLPA is saying, well, Cincinnati, that should not be the reason you don't sign Eric Reid, because the NFL itself doesn't even have legislation that requires Eric Reid to stand. So that's the argument that's going on here. And you see the weigh-in on your screen, and I want you guys chiming in on this because this is a very fluid situation. I'm getting update after update after update on this. And just imagine yourselves, all right? You guys are the owner of an NFL team, and you're interviewing a player. Would you ask them about possible kneeling during the national anthem? Would that even be on your chart of questions? Like, all right, are you cool with playing box safety? All right, could you get your weight down 5 pounds? And oh, by the way, what are your plans for the national anthem? Like, is that part of your list of questions? Again, this is me asking you guys. I want you all chiming in here on the Cam Show because this is, again, a story that will continue to develop. And so we got cases from the NFLPA. We got a case from Colin Kaepernick who's saying collusion as well. We got Eric Reid with his own grievance case as well. So again, I've said this before on previous episodes. The safety market, very, very slow. Kenny Vaccaro, Trey Boston, Quentin Demps, all these guys still are without jobs, and they're all safeties. So maybe it has to do with the safety market in terms of Eric Reid. But Reid's a good player, so it's kind of surprising he's still without a job. And obviously Cincinnati looked into him. So we'll get your questions here on the broadcast, and we'll be sure to flash them here throughout the program. Let's get to one final headline here. Ryan Switzer says he was misused by the Dallas Cowboys. So Switzer spoke with 24/7 Sports, saying that the Cowboys kind of tried to force him into this Lance Dunbar 2.0 kind of role here. And look, the stats kind of support his argument. You look at this. Prior to Week 17, Switzer had 2 catches for 9 yards, compared to 4 rushes for 5 yards, including 1 for -4. All right, before the final week, Week 17, he had a combined 26 passing down snaps, according to Next Gen Stats there. They do great work. Never more than 5 in a single game. All right, so we're talking about a prolific slot receiver out of UNC who had 96 catches in his senior season. And for some reason, he was misused. And I think a lot of people tried to force the Cole Beasley narrative a little too much when Switzer was drafted by Dallas. And I understand that. And maybe, we probably should have cooled our jets on that note. But the way in which the Cowboys used him was just very, very questionable. And I understand that Zeke missed some games and maybe Dallas had to get a little creative on their offense, which is kind of funny for me to say because Dallas is notoriously vanilla on offense. But Ryan Switzer, now a member of the Oakland Raiders there, and we'll see if he can kind of improve upon his senior season from UNC, because I'm thinking that Dallas Cowboys appearance last year, that season there, can just kind of be wiped away. All right, so there you go. That's the latest with Ryan Switzer. And that's the latest with the NFL. You're watching the Cam Rogers Show, presented by the Game Time app. Head on to chatsports.com/tickets to learn more. Really a fantastic app at that. 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and a lot more. Theater tickets as well. All right, folks, so developing story. Maybe not so developing anymore, but we're going to have some fun with this. Kurt Warner considered a comeback in the 2018 NFL season. He was legit in a conversation, this is coming from his words, not mine, with an NFL coach about coming back. Warner's going to turn 47 in June. Hasn't played since 2009. Now, he said this on a Monday night on a recent ESPN broadcast. And what I'm doing for you guys is I'm giving you my top 5 teams that Kurt Warner could sign with prior to the 2018 NFL season. Everybody just needs to chill out a little bit here because we're going to have some fun with this segment. And I know all the you YouTube commenters out there are dialing up the insults for Cam Rogers. And trust me, I can take them. But still, let's try to laugh together, all right? So let's go to team number 5 on my list. And it just makes sense, right? But they're no longer in St. Louis. They're in LA, the Rams here. And looking at the quarterback situation after Jared Goff, it ain't very good. Sean Mannion has 7 games experience in 3 years. Brandon Allen has 0 in 2 years. Insert Kurt Warner here as that veteran backup to Goff. And should anything awful happen, he can take this team to the playoffs. I'm telling you, the Rams have a well-balanced roster that, in my eyes, can still win a Super Bowl with an adequate, decent quarterback that just manages the game and doesn't make any mistakes. It's kind of the same logic with the Philadelphia Eagles a year ago, right? Carson Wentz went down, Nick Foles comes in, they had a balanced roster, front line on that defense to the secondary, offensive line to wide receiver, and ended up winning a Super Bowl. Yes, Warner's turning 47. I get that. But I think, honestly, he could be an upgrade over Mannion and Brandon Allen there. So you got Todd Gurley, Offensive Player of the Year, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks on that offense. Warner just needs to be a game manager, guys. Plus, that defense is going to be elite. right? You got Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald and Marcus Peters and LaMarcus Joyner. The list goes on. So I really like where things are at on that defense. I think this Rams team could finish #1 in scoring on offense and defense next season. I think they should be the favorites to do so. Okay, so again, the scenario would be Jared Goff gets hurt and perhaps the Rams don't have a lot of faith in their backup quarterbacks. GM Les Snead, ring-a-ding-ding to Kurt Warner. Hey, Kurt, what do you think? You want to try out in 7-on-7s, see how things look? He says, okay. He goes and plays in 7-on-7s. He beats out Allen and Mannion, and he is the starting quarterback for the LA Rams in Week 1 of 2018. I can't believe I'm actually saying that. But, I mean, it's possible. Anything is possible. And I'll tell you what, you saw on your screen there, or you see it right now on the bottom, Kurt could still get a ring without doing anything. He could be just carrying the clipboard for the entire regular season and the playoffs and capture a Super Bowl victory. Not too bad. You get paid, you don't have to do anything, and you get a ring. It's good stuff right there. So Kurt Warner and the LA Rams. Got them at #5. Let's go to #4 on my list here. And this one's going to be interesting. I can't wait for the comments. The Dallas Cowboys. All right, so we got Dak. I get it. They drafted Mike White. Understand that. I know you have the Cooper Rush loyalists out there as well. Dak has started every game in his career so far, but last year, you guys may recall, he got beaten and battered, right? Especially in that Atlanta Falcons game. Should that offensive line, which is going through changes, for some reason not pan out, and Dak Prescott gets hurt. By the way, a lot of these teams are with scenarios where their starting quarterbacks get hurt, so just know that. New offensive line coach in Dallas. We'll see how Connor Williams fits into that front five, and Fleming as well as that swing tackle. But again, if Dak somehow gets hurt, God forbid, I think Warner can step in and be better than Cooper Rush, and Mike White, it's just too early. So there you go. I say this is going to be adequate because the Dallas Cowboys can rely on Ezekiel Elliott in that offensive line, right? And Kurt Warner can be in that game manager type of role for the Dallas Cowboys. You feed Zeke, feed, maybe a little play action with Kurt Warner firing the football down the field, and see what happens there. You're set if you're the Dallas Cowboys. Now, again, this is like worst case scenario. Somehow your franchise quarterback and Dak Prescott gets hurt. But again, I personally feel that Warner would be a better option right now than Cooper Rush or Mike White. So there you go. Dallas Cowboys check in at #4. Let's go to #3 on my list here. This is a team that is very much in the market for a backup quarterback. They're in talks with Derek Anderson to bring him back. Yes, I'm talking about the Carolina Panthers here. And for Carolina, they're an interesting one. So you got Garrett Gilbert there, who has 0 NFL experience. So don't even tell me that he is a reliable backup. And like I said, they're in talks with Derek Anderson. And, of course, he was the backup quarterback for the Panthers a year ago. But should they not come to a deal with Anderson here, Kurt Warner makes sense. Now, this is another team that predicates its offense off the run game, which is certainly beneficial for a 47-year-old quarterback. Newton has missed at least 1 game 2 of the last 4 years. So he's no sure thing to be playing all 16. That we know. And I honestly think this is the same situation with Dallas. Warner is an upgrade over the 2 quarterbacks that are currently on the Carolina Panthers roster behind Cam Newton. So C.J. Anderson is now in town. You got Christian McCaffrey. It's a good run game. The Panthers finished 4th in rushing a year ago. I think they're going to improve upon that in 2018 despite the loss of Andrew Norwell there going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this is a situation for Warner where, he's got the best friend in the good run game. You got a good defense. I know Thomas Davis got suspended, and the Panthers will have to work on that. But I like the selections they made via the draft. And, oh, yeah, by the way, there's that guy named DJ Moore now on the Carolina Panthers, who I think is going to be a big-time player. You got Torrey Smith there as well, Jermaine Carter, former Terp, too. So it's turning into University of Maryland South there with the Carolina Panthers. Kurt Warner, Carolina, I don't know. If they're talking to Derek Anderson, you might as well bring in Kurt Warner, right? At least for a tryout. Tyler chiming in. Tyler likes it. I'd love my Panthers to sign him. Thank you, Tyler, for not thinking I am insane here right now with thinking that maybe Carolina could bring in Kurt Warner. Tyler, we're not talking about Warner starting week 1, right, my man? We're just talking about insurance policies here. And the depth chart at quarterback, it ain't very good for the Panthers there, especially with Derek Anderson on the open market. Willie chiming in. Kurt would last 4 games at most before getting hurt, LOL. Well, Willie, that's very possible, actually. Yes, that could happen. And, of course, there's going to have to be a good run game for Kurt Warner because he needs all the pass protection he can get. Miller says I'm crazy for sure. I already knew that, Miller. Tell me something I don't know, all right? Sheesh. But keep hitting me up in the comments section. Let me know what you think about this Kurt Warner potential comeback. That probably doesn't seem likely, but still fun to talk about. All right, let's get to team number 2 on my list. And call me crazy again, but I could see starting quarterback potential here. Okay, here we go. Denver Broncos at number 2. John Elway, I think, would love to bring in Kurt as a veteran backup behind Case Keenum. So let's first say this. Case Keenum is no guarantee to actually work out in Denver. 2017 could have been just a flash in the pan, right? What if Case Keenum turns into Rams Case Keenum or Texans Case Keenum and just stinks up the joint? And then you look at the rest of the roster there. What, you have faith in Paxton Lynch to take you to the promised land? Chad Kelly? You kidding me? No. You bring in Kurt Warner to help out that quarterback position there. And look, we all know what Paxton Lynch can do. It's very little. And Chad Kelly, I mean, I guess the jury is still out in a way, but he's not a very good quarterback. He's certainly not starting worthy in my eyes. The Broncos want to win now, guys. And you may recall that the Broncos won a Super Bowl with an old and brittled and worn-down quarterback. His name's Peyton Manning. And maybe Denver can kind of channel the Super Bowl 50 team here in 2018. You bring in Kurt Warner there, 47 years young, have him take you to the promised land. As a manager, obviously, he's not going to throw the football 45, 50 times, right? But say Case Keenum doesn't pan out, or, of course, Case Keenum gets hurt, you're not going to the Super Bowl with Paxton Lynch or Chad Kelly. That I can tell you with confidence. And, by the way, the offensive line for Denver is no sure thing for pass protection because it was not very good a year ago, and I still have my concerns on that interior there. So, yeah. Bobby, a loyal watcher of the Cam Rogers Show, he should be a Raider because their car always breaks down. Yeah, that's a good point there, Bobby. Appreciate you watching the show here today, and keep hitting me up in the comments section. Let me know what you think about old Kurt Warner there. So Denver, I think, makes some sense, and I got them at number 2 on my list here. So we'll see what happens with Case Keenum and the Keenum experiment, but I'll tell you what, John Elway is kind of like John Gruden. They like to be unconventional with their personnel decisions, so we shall see. All right, with that, my number 1 team that could sign Kurt Warner, and he could be the savior, he could be the starter in week 1, who the heck knows, the Buffalo Bills. So, let's look at the quarterback position here name by name. You tell me who's going to be starting in week 1, because I have no idea. You got A.J. McCarron, maybe he's the stopgap option there. You got Josh Allen, who the Bills traded up for. Nathan Peterson, Mr. Interceptions himself. I just trust no one on this quarterback depth chart. Maybe A.J. McCarron, because I am somewhat of an A.J. McCarron fanboy. I still think he's a quality player in the NFL. Other people disagree, but I have, stuck to my guns on that. I think McCarron can be successful. But let's say he's not. Now what do you do if you're the Buffalo Bills? You don't rush Josh Allen to be the starter in week 1. I mean, that would just be the biggest mistake in the history of the Buffalo Bills franchise, and there have been a lot of them. And that would be a mistake. Josh Allen has incredible upside, an incredible ceiling, could be a premier quarterback in the NFL. But if you rush him into the wolves, if you will, of the NFL and the play on the field, especially in regular season repetitions, that is not good, especially when you have a new system here with offensive coordinator Brian Daboll coming back into the NFL from Alabama. And that just would not be a good use of Josh Allen. You need to let him learn and groom him throughout the course of the year. I think this should be a redshirt year, honestly, for Allen, unless the Bills are like 0-15 and maybe you think Allen's ready to go. Nathan Peterman, already talked about him. He just likes to throw interceptions like it's throwing candy during a parade. So with that, Kurt Warner, quality offensive line ahead of him, with the Buffalo Bills. I know they're losing Richie Incognito, and they lost Eric Wood as well, and maybe that hurts some things. But you got a great runner in LaShawn McCoy. You got a big-time receiver in Kelvin Benjamin who can make those go up and get them basketball type of catches. There's actually a scenario here where Kurt Warner could be the starting quarterback for the Buffalo Bills at 47 years old and maybe, just maybe, challenge Tom Brady for the AFC East crown. Okay, maybe not that much, but still, like, you tell me, guys, honestly, you rank these 4 quarterbacks: McCarron, Kurt Warner, right? Nathan Peterman, and Josh Allen right now. Rank them all for me in the comments section. Who do you have the most confidence in? Probably AJ by a smidge, but then I would put Kurt Warner right behind AJ McCarron. No confidence in Nathan Peterman, and it's way too early to start Josh Allen. Would you want Kurt Warner back in the NFL? Let me know in the comments section here on Facebook Live. We'll try to bring up a few more throughout the segment here as I go into my summary. Top 5 teams that Kurt Warner could sign with this offseason here. All right, number 1, the Buffalo Bills. At 2, we've got the Denver Broncos. I think 1 and 2 could be starting quarterback potential here. If Case Keenum doesn't work out, for some reason he reverts back to the old Case Keenum, Buffalo Bills, that makes some sense as well. Carolina Panthers at 3, more of a backup option. Dallas Cowboys backup option as well. And then the LA Rams, well, that would just be kind of a sentimental story, even though the Rams are in LA now, but they're there at number 5. Anthony, Cardinals make the most sense. Yeah, I mean, you look at the Cardinals situation at quarterback right now, and yeah, there's Rosen. Do they want to force him into the fray in week 1? Who knows? There's Sam Bradford, who is no sure thing to play 16 games in a season, and Mr. Overpaid Mike Glennon there. So, yeah, I mean, the quarterback situation in Arizona is probably sort of full, Anthony. That's what I'll say. But maybe they give Kurt Warner a call if Glennon just stinks up the joint during camp, and they're just like, all right, see ya. Or, you know, maybe Sam Bradford gets hurt during training camp or whatever the case may be. But appreciate the comment there, Anthony. Hope you're enjoying the show here today, and I hope you guys enjoyed that segment. All right? You're watching the Cam Rogers Show here, presented by the Game Time app. Head on to chatsports.com/tickets to get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and theater tickets. 5-star reviews on Android and iPhone as well. I am Cam Rogers. We thank you for tuning into this program here. Wrapping up a little NFL talk to get to some NBA talk now. So LeBron James is LeBroning in the playoffs. He is absolutely crushing it right now, carrying this Cavs team throughout the postseason. Absolutely did work against the Toronto Raptors, who, by the way, we can make fun of for the rest of the show if you wanted to. So what I have done is I have ranked the top 5 LeBron James playoff performances. Gonna count you down from number 5 all the way to number 1. So with all of these options here, let me say this. There are going to be some snubs, and I want you to call me out if there are some snubs there, and we'll be sure to mention them on the broadcast here. But finding 5 glorious appearances there for LeBron James, it's difficult because there are a lot of great ones in his career so far. So with that, let's do it. Let's get into number 5 on my list here. And we're talking about the Eastern Conference semifinals versus the Pacers here. And actually, this is the Pistons game here. This was back in 2007, the Eastern Conference Finals versus those Pistons in Game 5. And this is when LeBron James became LeBron James. I mean, that really was fantastic, and I'll talk about that more later in the program. Hint, hint. That was a little sneak peek there at what I'll be talking about later. This game here, though, 2012 Eastern Conference semifinals versus the Pacers. Game 4, folks. LeBron looking for that coveted NBA title. This series was tough. This series was gritty. The Pacers had built a 10-point lead in the third quarter and were threatening to run away with this. James scored 40 points with 18 rebounds and 9 assists. Miami rallied to even the semifinal series with a 101-93 victory there. Chris Bosh, by the way, was injured. He wasn't even in Indiana for this game. So James stepped up, had some help from Dwayne Wade in the process. He fired 30 points. And you know what's funny? Shane Battier said after the game, quote, LeBron had that look. And when he has that look, and Dwayne has that look, you want to run through a wall. And that's exactly what the Cavs did in that game. I mean, they were amped up, and LeBron James, I mean, seriously had a fantastic performance. By the way, in this series, that's when Lance Stevenson used that choke signal after LeBron missed a free throw in Game 3. So, yeah, how did that work out for you guys, Pacers? Of course, LeBron's Heat went on to the NBA Finals, and they lost to the Mavs. And Dirk absolutely went off in that final series. I mean, that's a fantastic performance in its own right. So 2012 Eastern Conference semifinals versus those Pacers in Game 4. That's my number 5 ranking for top 5 LeBron James playoff performances. All right, let's go to number 4 on my list, and we'll jump to 2016, the NBA Finals versus the Warriors. And this was Game 5. The Cavs down 3-1, absolutely turned around the series, of course, starting with this game. You know, 3-1 lead for the Warriors is kind of synonymous with the LeBron James comeback. The comeback of unbelievable proportions here. LeBron fought and fought, pouring in a ridiculous 41 points, 16 rebounds as well, 7 assists, and had 3 steals in this game for the Cavs. This was the turning point in the series, obviously. That's why I have it here in my rankings. You'll see another game from this series later. The Warriors jumped down to a 12-5 lead in this game. And everybody thought, including me, here we go again. Warriors are just going to steamroll the Cavs, and the Warriors are going to capture it all. And obviously, that was not the case. Now, one thing to note, a little footnote on this game here, the Warriors didn't have Draymond Green due to a suspension. So Green, of course, great rim protector. Obviously, there was opportunity for LeBron James to go off, especially to the rack, if Draymond Green really was not there. So there you go. He certainly took advantage of that opportunity. So LeBron in Game 5, 2016 NBA Finals versus those Warriors. By the way, shout out to Kyrie. He balled out as well. 41 points, 17 of 24 shooting for his own credit there. So Kyrie, LeBron both went off in that one. Game 5, 2016 NBA Finals. That ranks at number 4. Let's go to number 3 here, and we're going to stay in this series. It's Game 7 this time, 2016 NBA Finals versus those Warriors. LeBron James capturing his 3rd NBA title, and it came with the Cleveland Cavs. And he brought it to Cleveland. He brought it to his home state of Ohio, and of course there was the block that broke the internet. Less than 2 minutes remaining. As you guys just saw on your screen, LeBron James chases down Iguodala, blocks the layup, and keeps the game tied. This was a signature performance in several ways. First of all, I am ranking this one ahead of Game 5 because, well, the Cavs won the NBA title in this game, so I think that just makes more sense. 27 points from LeBron, 11 rebounds, 11 assists. All right, stat line, good. And then the block, that just adds that extra juice here in my rankings. And LeBron winning the title for Cleveland easily puts this performance at number 3 on my list. 3rd NBA title, as I said, along with his 3rd NBA Finals MVP honors. Went on to win that series, as you see, 4-3 against those Warriors. And what a performance it was. What a series that was. Just thinking about it from a macro perspective back in 2016, really, really fun NBA Finals to watch. And no, it wasn't Red Sox-Yankees 04 complete turnaround, but still, it's just a glorious performance from James. And I think that highlight there with the block is something that I will always remember as a LeBron fan. You think of the top 5 just moments, plays from LeBron James, and I think the block has to be in there. All right, so let's go to number 2 on my list here, guys. Top 5 LeBron James playoff performances. Let's go back to his Miami Heat days, 2012 Eastern Conference Finals against those Celtics. Game 6. It was a rivalry game, 45 points, and the Heat went on to win this series. James went off, and I was talking with a colleague here at Chat Sports, Harris Rubenstein, who's a great NBA analyst in his own right, big-time Celtics fan too. He said that this performance was individually the best from LeBron James, at least from what he has seen. And, you know, you're hard-pressed to argue against it. I do have it here at number 2. Rivalry game, as I said, the Heat were down 3-2. LeBron just put on an exceptional evening with those 45 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists, went 19 of 26 shooting. You know what James once called this game? A defining moment. Not just for him, but for his teammates and for the Heat franchise. Now, of course, those words don't carry as much weight anymore now that he's with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But at the time, or at least a couple of years later, that's when he said it, that, you know, it was a defining moment there for LeBron. So there you go, big-time performance there. And, you know, I will say with this game here, you really saw the LeBron James killer instinct emerge in full force in this matchup against the Celtics, particularly in this Game 6. You just saw it in his eyes. And that's when, you know, I really just saw, like, okay, this guy has a whole new gear. We're still learning more about LeBron. We're still learning about what he still can do in the playoffs. And he just turned into a whole new kind of performance there. So that was in 2012. I gave you guys a sneak peek earlier in the show about number 1 on my list here. I'll give you the full-on analysis. 2007 Eastern Conference Finals, the Pistons, Game 5. Both teams finishing with the Eastern Conference's top 2 regular season records. And, you know, I'm going to give you guys some historical background before I get to my reasoning behind this pick. Game 1 in this series, LeBron scored 10 points, which was a playoff low for him at the time. Then he had some miscues in Game 2. Then eventually Game 5 happened. And LeBron, at 22 years old, 1 year ahead of being able to legally drink, scored 25 straight points in 29 of Cleveland's final 30. Simply remarkable stuff. He forced overtime on a driving dunk with 9 seconds remaining, and then finished the game off in double overtime with a driving layup with 2 seconds left. Chauncey Billups said at the end, quote, "We just couldn't stop him." And Cavs coach Mike Brown at the time said the following, quote, "I feel bad that my words don't do justice for what he actually did." It was an incredible performance back in 2007 against those Pistons in Game 5. And, I mean, you've got to factor in everything here for my rankings and putting it at number 1. His age, the 25 straight points, the flack that he got in the early part of this series with the miscues and only scoring 10 in Game 1. And then out of nowhere, I'm telling you, I don't think a lot of people really, nobody expected 25 straight points. Let's just say that. And he got it done. And it was a remarkable performance. That's at number 1 on my list. Let me know what I missed. And hey, let me know what your favorite LeBron James playoff memory is. Hit me up in the comments section on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. Let me summarize what I got for you guys. So 2007 Eastern Conference Finals against those Pistons in Game 5, the 25 straight points at 22 years old. 2012 Eastern Conference Finals against those Celtics, Game 6, rivalry game, 45 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists. 2016 NBA Finals against the Warriors when he went on to capture the title and brought the title to Cleveland. 27 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists. And let's not forget that block in that game. And then at number 4, 2016 NBA Finals against the Warriors. That was Game 5, the turning point in that series, of course, the 3-1 lead. LeBron James not going down without a fight. The Warriors jumped out to that 12-5 lead in the game. Everybody thought it's all over. It was not. And then at number 5, 2012 Eastern Conference Semifinals against the Pacers there. LeBron looking for that coveted NBA title. Miami rallying in that game and evening the series with a 101-93 win. Pacers had a 10-point lead in that game. Didn't matter. James scored 40, 18 rebounds, had 9 assists as well. My top 5 performances for LeBron James in the playoffs. There you go. All right, folks, you're watching the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. I am Cam Rogers. Hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Again, keep commenting on Facebook. I do appreciate when you guys chime in. Also, hit me up on YouTube as well. So, we've got a little golf to talk about to wrap up the program here. The Players' Championship will get going starting tomorrow morning. They call it the unofficial 5th major, and of course, this won't be a major championship victory for Tiger if he were to win it, but it certainly would be huge for momentum heading into the U.S. Open. So how is Tiger going to fare in this tournament? Well, looking back to last week at the Wells Fargo Championship, he lost 6 strokes putting. All right, that ain't very good, but he still played well tee to green. He finished in the top 8 in strokes gained tee to green in that tournament, which is obviously critical at TPC Sawgrass. Now, where is TPC Sawgrass, folks? Geography question. It's in Florida. If you look at Tiger's performances in the state of Florida so far this year, they're very encouraging. Here are the finishes. 12th at the Honda Classic. T2 at the Valspar Championship. T5 at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. So 3 straight top 12 finishes in the state of Florida. Tiger knows how to play in that wind. He loves to club down. You know he doesn't like to hit driver, I'm telling you. And playing at TPC Sawgrass, it's a less than driver course. You can hit the 3-woods and the 2-irons and the 1-irons if you're really feeling it off the tee. And I think that's what's going to be Tiger Woods' strategy in this tournament. Club down, hit that stinger with a little baby draw, right? Put yourself in position. His iron game is on point, guys. His chipping is on point. There's no way he's going to lose 6 strokes putting again this week. There's just no way. And oh, by the way, guess who Tiger's playing with this week? At least for the first 2 rounds. Phil Mickelson. We'll take a look at some of the marquee groupings here. Tiger teeing off tomorrow at 1:52 Eastern Time with old Phil there. And Ricky Fowler. And let me just say this. It's fun that Tiger and Phil are like friends, at least publicly friends. For so many years, it was like, well, do Tiger and Phil actually like each other and all this stuff? Clearly they do now. Tiger and Phil playing together at the Players for the first time since 2001. That was in the 3rd round when Mickelson fired an even par score while Woods shot at 66. Tiger won that year, by the way, while Phil finished T33. That was the better than most putt, if you may recall, and I'm sure you'll see that highlight a million times this week as well. Tiger, Phil, Ricky. That's a marquee pairing at that. Let's get to the next one. Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, and Rory McIlroy will all tee off together. That's a fun grouping at that. Justin Thomas, very good performances so far this year. Highly ranked on the FedEx Cup point standings. Jordan Spieth has actually missed the last few cuts at this tournament, so hasn't really figured out TPC Sawgrass just yet, but this tournament tends to have a varying level of results. McIlroy is there as well. He's playing good golf. Let's get to Bubba Watson, Dustin Johnson, and Brooks Koepka, the reigning U.S. Open champion who recently returned to the tour after suffering a wrist injury. So with Brooks teeing it up this week, looks like he'll be good to go for the U.S. Open there at Shinnecock Hills. Dustin Johnson, you may not think his game really suits TPC Sawgrass. You know, you think club down, shorter, plotter type of hitters. But Johnson did finish 12th recently at this tournament. And then there's Bubba Watson, who you guys know I just don't like Bubba at all, but there he is. They tee off at 8:05 a.m. Eastern Time. And then let's take a look at the defending champion, Si Woo Kim, at 8:16 a.m. Eastern Time, along with Adam Scott, who has performed really well at this tournament, as well as Martin Keimer, a reigning U.S. Open champion, as well as a reigning Players champion. So he's got a couple of big-time trophies in his case right now. That's a fun pairing. That'll be in the early window tomorrow morning. Players Championship getting going tomorrow. All right, folks, you guys are watching the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live, episode 101. Hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Get the podcast version of the show as well. Chatsports.com/Cam Show. That's how you get it done for all you iPhone users out there. All right, folks, I will see you back here Friday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Have a great Wednesday. Enjoy your Thursday. See you Friday.